of nowhere is an absolute joy to explore. There's no people, there's no noise, just peace and quiet everywhere. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be exploring the woods. We decided to go hiking today because there's nothing else to do around here. So let's get to it. While we were walking through the forest, we came across this big old tree that had fallen across the road. It's always fun to go around these. Sometimes we don't know where the end of the road is, so we have to go off-roading, and it's always super exciting because you never know what you're gonna find. But once we got past the log, the excitement ended. This was the most boring part of our hike. There wasn't anything interesting around. All there was trees. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we saw a tiny little dirt road that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. So naturally, we had to check it out. What if it led to something cool? You never know what you're gonna find down these sorts of roads. So we started driving down it, and after a while, it opened up to this field, and in the middle of this field was a bridge. The bridge looked very old and very well made. It almost looked like it was made in the 1800s. Now we didn't want to get too close to it because we didn't know if it was safe or not. But when we turned our truck around and started heading back, we realized we needed to cross this bridge because the road ended right before it. So we had no other choice. We had to go over it. Now, when we got closer to it, we noticed some writing on the side of the bridge. When we read it, it said, "Beware, this bridge only appears at midnight." Of course, I laughed, thinking how ridiculous this had to be. A bridge that only appears at midnight. Yeah, right. But then I looked at my watch and realized we had just barely made it to this bridge in time. It was 11:58 p.m. The bridge was gonna disappear soon, so I told my friend, "Let's go." And we sped up, making our way to the other side of the bridge. As we crossed over, the clock struck 12. As soon as it did, the bridge began to glow brightly, and the ground beneath us rumbled. Then suddenly, with a flash of light, the bridge vanished, and we found ourselves in another world. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. The trees were a bright blue color, the flowers were yellow and green, and in front of us was this gigantic castle. It looked medieval, yet futuristic at the same time. In the distance, we could see a river, but it wasn't water that flowed through it. It was lava. Now, my first thought was that this had to be a dream, but I couldn't move, which meant that I was awake. I was also scared, but excited at the same time. We had absolutely no idea where we were or how we got here, but one thing was for certain. We had to check out this castle. As we drove closer, we realized that it wasn't just any ordinary castle. It was the tallest building around. In fact, it was the only building around. There was nothing else here but trees. A lot of trees. They seemed to go on forever. I stopped the car and said to my buddy, "This place gives me the creeps. Let's go back home." But he insisted we should go inside. He said we had to know what was going on around here. So he knocked on the door. No answer. Then he tried the handle. It was unlocked, so he opened the door and we walked in. The entryway was dark, but as my eyes adjusted, I could see that it was circular. Above us was a huge hole in the roof, letting light shine in. On the walls were all sorts of strange hieroglyphics that I'd never seen before. It was clear that this place had been abandoned for a long time. The air was stale and filled with dust. Every step we took echoed through the room. We were the only ones here. Or were we? As we ventured deeper inside, we heard a voice say, "Who goes there?" We spun around, but there was no one there. "Who goes there?" the voice said again. And then we saw it. On the wall, the hieroglyphics began to move. They swirled around until they formed these three words. "Turn around." My friend and I looked at each other, then back at the wall. We knew we should probably leave, but curiosity was getting the best of us. We didn't listen, and instead kept walking forward. Suddenly, the ground shook and the walls rumbled. The hieroglyphics flashed and then went blank. The voice boomed again, louder than before. "Leave now, or face the consequences." Of course, we didn't listen, and when we turned the corner, what we saw made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. In front of us was a giant, like a really big guy. It was made out of stone, but its eyes glowed red. It looked angry. My friend and I froze. We were in shock. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. Was this thing real, or was it a hallucination? The statue spoke. It said, "You have trespassed on sacred grounds. For that, I must punish you." It raised its arms and then slammed them down. The ground cracked. I grabbed onto my friend's shoulder as we both fell to the ground. We were safe. The statue had not hurt us. Instead, it had teleported us. We were no longer in the castle. We were outside. It was daytime again. The sun was shining and birds were tweeting. The only difference was that the sky was filled with two suns, but that wasn't what caught my attention. In front of us was the bridge. It had reappeared. We could now see where it led, or rather, what it led to. It didn't lead to anywhere. It just ended in thin air. And then behind it we saw the castle. It wasn't blue anymore. It was gray. And it didn't look like a castle. It looked like a prison. We realized that if we stepped onto that bridge, we wouldn't be coming back. So we ran away as fast as we could. We drove back down that dirt road, past the big tree, and as far away from the bridge as possible. When we finally stopped, we looked back. We wanted to see if we could spot the blue sky again, but we couldn't. All we could see was the normal sky, the same one we'd always known. That's when we realized we weren't just at a different place. We were in a different dimension. What are the chances of finding a portal in the middle of nowhere? Not likely. But what are the chances of finding a portal that takes you to a different dimension? Probably a lot less. Finding a portal in the middle of nowhere is an amazing experience. But finding a portal that takes you to another world, well, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I mean, come on! Who wouldn't want to visit another dimension, especially one full of blue trees and glowing statues? I know I would. Oh, and speaking of portals, did you know there's a portal in my living room? Okay, it's actually just a picture, but I like to pretend it's a portal to another world, a world where there's portals everywhere. Imagine that, a world where you can travel to different dimensions by just stepping through pictures on the wall. How crazy is that? If you want to see what happens when someone steps through a portal in my living room, just click on this video right here. I guarantee it'll be a wild ride. So click on it. Come on, please click on it. Please click on it.